Sick and tired of your love-hate relationship with wine?
Welcome to the Feel It Alcohol-Free podcast. Hi, I'm Coach Ruby Williams.
And I'm Coach Susan Larkin.
We're two former wine lovers turned alcohol freedom coaches, exposing the lies about alcohol
and giving you, our listeners, the tools to break free so you can feel lit.
And when you're lit, you'll feel healthier, freer, and more in control of your life.
So relax, kick back, and get ready to feel lit alcohol-free. Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Feel It Alcohol-Free podcast. We are super excited to be here with you today. And we have a special guest. We have Martha Wright back. She is our social life queen about doing everything alcohol-free, living in Paris. So I'm going to just introduce Martha, and then we'll jump into our listener's question that we brought Martha on specifically to address. So Martha Wright is a New Orleans-born veteran of the wine industry, turned sobriety and mindful drinking coach. With her rich background as a winery owner and recipe developer for Food Network chefs, Martha's approach combines the science of habits and uncovering of unconscious beliefs and a sprinkle of fun and lusciousness in life. She splits her time between Paris, Portland, and New Orleans. And Martha's always on the hunt for the best street food markets, coffee shops, and non-alcoholic venues. And when she's not hosting NA meetups or playing ping pong, she's inspiring others to embrace an alcohol-free lifestyle with joy and resilience. So welcome back, Martha.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm psyched to be here. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah. We are excited to have you too. And today we invited you to answer a question that came from one of our community members. And it is, help! I've been invited to a bachelorette party in wine country and I'm not drinking. What do I do?
I love it.
Martha,
I love the question, and I admire that this person asked the question. They really could have just said, I'm just gonna, grit my teeth and get through it. They could have said, I'm just not even going to go. And it's really admirable to approach this with this curiosity and just say, maybe there are some tips out there. Maybe I could crowdsource this. Maybe other people have been through this, feel this way. So first up, really just shout out to anybody. And I'm excited about this question because I had to do, and I'm sure many people listening can relate to, having to think through these very same things. How can I reclaim this space, this activity? This is so tied up in, drinking. This whole activity is centered. It feels centered only on the drinking. So if I'm not drinking, how in the world am I not going to feel like a drag on this party or that I'm missing out? And so I want to start with a disclaimer a little bit or just an idea about how we can think about this. And the first is to say, everyone is going to discern for themselves whether this is a good idea for them. Let's just, get that out of the way. That if someone feels like going to wine country is too triggering, they're not ready, then they're just not going to do it. But from the question, we're assuming that this is someone that's like, no, I'm really just more talking about how do I still feel a part of it and not feel left out. And then the other is just to say, just know that all the things, I'm going to sprinkle out a lot of ideas. They won't all resonate with you. And that's fine. But then maybe just take the principle behind it and apply it to the event you have in mind. It might not be that the bachelorette party is relevant, but the sort of tactics and the kind of principles behind it will apply no matter what event you're talking about. If this is a all-inclusive event in Cabo, whatever it is for you, these same ideas are going to apply. And so the first thing I would say too is it's worth thinking about why is this even important to think about, it would be tempting to say, okay, this sounds kind of silly, or maybe, why are we going to belabor and get into all of this? And does it really matter? And I just would encourage anyone to think, oh my gosh, it actually matters a lot. This type of activity is worth gold. There is so much to gain from experiencing this and experiencing it alcohol free and doing what this person is trying to do. Let me put a lot of thought and intention into it. And I would encourage people to realize that the path to freedom is actually made up of these very types of exercises, experiments. And in doing them, you have the opportunity to slay some old beliefs about the benefits of alcohol, that things that right. You're going to observe, and you have the opportunity to slay the idea that alcohol somehow magically makes people better conversationalists or wittier, or, have more fun, or you're just going to get to experience it personally, which is the only way that the change takes place.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's so good. It's also about, too, what is the intention of the gathering, right? Is it just to drink and get drunk? Totally. Or is it really about honoring, if this is Bachelorette, honoring the bride to be, exactly. Having camaraderie with the people who are attending, building relationships so that you have these, because sometimes you bring people from all different parts of the bride's life and they don't all know each other. And that's the whole point of the Bachelorette as well, is get everybody together, build some camaraderie before the wedding.
Totally.
Yeah.
I love
slay.
Yeah. I love
slay too.
And what we're going to be talking about, we're going to get to it, but just laying the groundwork, we're talking about not just the opportunity to say, can this be even more fun? Keep in mind that your friends that are drinking will eventually hit the point where they're having their come down. You will not. So that's just one thing that I can say up front. How amazing is that? There is always the point. There's no option of having alcohol and not having the come down. So there is some point where they're on, the down slide. So this is about approaching this as something that could be more fun, more colorful, more vibrant, and I love, Susan, that you brought up, yes, more connection when we're paying attention and we're clear-headed and we have the intention of, I want to use this as that opportunity to get to know each other. So the first things that I would get into would be what I would consider practical tips and thoughts, and then get more into, after that, the questions we can ask ourselves of how we want to show up. Is it okay if I just give some tips about things we can do?
Absolutely.
Yes.
I'm writing them down.
So yeah, really, we can start by researching a little bit the wineries that have other things on offer besides wine tasting. And there's so many examples, but this is true of wine countries all over the US and, in Europe too. But it might be that the winery has a fabulous art collection. It might be that there is a hike through their beautiful grounds, or an olive mill on the property and they do olive oil tastings. There might be and I'm naming all things that I have found in wine country. There might be a beautiful plant nursery or a gorgeous gift shop. There might be lavender fields. So these are all things that we can, learn about, research, and discover other things that would just be fun and interesting and novel, that everyone in the group would enjoy. To keep in mind that wine country is just means it's an agricultural area. There are all kinds of other things that are being produced there. So it might be that it'd be fun
It's
to
beautiful
do.
too.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. So
It's so beautiful here. It's not the grapes' fault, right? I always like to say that. It's just a beautiful, and oftentimes there's tours also in wineries that are really fun too.
There are tours. There was a group from Annie Grace's The Path that came out to Oregon wine country and did a hot air balloon ride. And I mean, that is thrilling. That is super adventuresome.
Love it.
You can rent ATVs and, go bombing through the vines. You can rent vintage cars. There are all kinds of things that are happening in wine country that are not related to wine. But as you said, Ruby, it's beautiful. So where there are vines, there are beautiful places to have a picnic. It also follows that great chefs love to be in wine country. So there are plenty of places to really have an exceptional meal or to go get provisions for your picnic, as we said. So beyond the research to find these other kind of activities, absolutely. Well, one thing I was going to say is do not feel pressure to be the designated driver. There is no reason for that. And one, I think that we can alleviate that pressure there, that somehow there would be an expectation. This is your party too. And if you want to have that feeling of being relaxed and the same way that the others do, and for some people, they might love to drive. So that's very personal. If you want to drive and that gives you a sense of control and if that makes you feel comfortable, I think that's awesome. I would probably be someone that would prefer not to. And don't have that expectation of yourself, I would say. And then also think about things that you would pack up in a cooler for the car. And I say cooler just because it could very easily be hot. And so you want to keep your stuff cool, but to bring your own beverages, to have, whether it's just sparkling water or whether it's an alcohol-free beverage that you really like. And I love that when I put out a call on Instagram and said that I was going to be, answering and discussing this question with you all, someone said, "Oh, I love having dark chocolate as kind of a treat and something special." I think that's such a great suggestion. And, it could be, I love the idea of dark chocolate. And it could be that you also want your little selection of, almonds and some great cheese, different things that you could have with you. And if they're beverages, you could think of beverages that are made right there in that area. So if you're in the Napa Sonoma area, there are some non-alcoholic wines that are made right there that are excellent.
Yeah.
I will say it's important that we don't assume that it's okay to bring in things from the outside. Always check those things. And county by county, it could even be that some winery tasting rooms are not allowed to have food in them, or they're not able to serve you in any beverage. I'm not positive, but I know that can vary county by county. So I always think we want to not act like we expect a winery to have an NA option for us, but if you feel like engaging in that conversation, to let them know, hey, if you ever did have an NA beverage, I would love to support that. I would love to be recommending you.
I would love to share that this is where Susan and I actually met in person for the first time. We had known each other on Zoom, online, and through our coach training, etc. But we met, we discovered, or Susan discovered, that Deerfield Ranch in Sonoma County had an NA option. And it was the first time that I went to a winery after getting alcohol free. And I was a little nervous because I worked in the wine industry, as you know, but it was, I was a little trepidatious, but I had my friend with me and we were both sober and we were really curious. And it was H2O. It's kind of like a sparkling in a can.
Sonoma seltzer.
I've seen that, but I've never tasted it.
It was delicious. And we felt special, and we got to be in the cave. It was like a cave, and I knew the people that worked there. No, it was a really, really interesting to experience it in this way. Yeah.
It's such a game changer when you get to have that experience. I completely agree. I had that experience with a group in a tasting room in Oregon that offers, there's sort of a group tasting room. And so there's a winery making alcoholic wine, but there is also a distillery that's making non-alcoholic spirits. And I love that because it feels like you can just go in with a group. And if some people are drinking, that's great. But for those that are not drinking, there are these really interesting non-alcoholic spirits that they're letting you taste neat and also made into a cocktail. And what can be so just really accomplishes such a big shift in all of us is to have the experience of, oh my gosh, our group of non-drinkers, we were the loud ones. We were the ones just yucking it up, having a great time. And that, like we're saying, that slays the belief that this is a drag, that I won't be able to have fun in this environment. So I agree with you, Ruby, that makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was so fun. And then we've met again in Napa this past November.
Right.
And what I noticed, we went to a few places. They actually had non-alcoholic mocktails on their menu, which was not the case when I went wine tasting with my family over Christmas in 2022. I had a lot of water and I didn't really prepare like what we're doing here. I just sort of went along. I think I did drive. I made all the mistakes, but then again, it was really about, being with my cousins and my sister and my mom and my aunt. And so it was about that. And so it's so nice that now here 5 years later or 3 years later from 2022 to now, there actually have options on most of the tasting menus that we went into.
We had delicious drinks.
That is,
Yeah.
I mean, that's huge. That is so good to hear. And it's just sign of the times that in the scheme of things, we're talking about a really short amount of time. And that's a sea change. So if I would love to kind of talk more and think more about this idea, Susan, you really brought it up when you're talking about who is this for? What is this about? What's the real spirit of this gathering? So for that, I think what we're really asking, and this is why I say this can apply to anything. It doesn't have to be the bachelorette party, but to ask ourselves, how do I want to feel at this event and show up? What energy would I feel good about bringing? Again, who is this for and what's the importance of it? So that really shifts things right there. And if you really could argue that kind of thought before an event is valuable and helpful, whether you're talking about alcohol or not. It's very much what very few of us were taught to do. So it's part of the reason we've all used alcohol as a crutch is we tend to just go racing into an event, not much thought about what is the real meaning of this, or how can we create more meaning out of this event? So for instance, you talked about the honoring. If honoring the honoree, if the purpose is to honor the bride, is there something I want to bring to this? And an example, my sister had a big milestone birthday and we were all going to meet in New Orleans. And at a certain point, I realized we had texted, but no one had really sent out an official invitation. There was some feeling on my part of like, I kind of want something to announce and bring us together before we even arrive in New Orleans. So you do not have to be creative. you can ask Chat GPT or something like that to say, let me give you these prompts, Chat GPT, and can you help me come up with a poem or a parody of a song that is a song from our high school years, and we're going to change the words to be all about the attendees and the different bridesmaids and whatever. And would that be just a simple way to honor the bride? And, also be pulling in some playfulness. So if, one would be, if we want to honor the bride, another idea to do that would be, I don't know, sometimes people wear silly things with the veil, or I've seen some really crude ones that, depends on your style, whatever you do you. But yeah, absolutely, you could create a sash that everyone's going to wear with something, playful. I'm worried that without alcohol, I can't get silly. So if that's part of what you're thinking of, I want to be in a playful mood. I want to be in a fun mood. That's how I want to show up for this person. Then let's think of ingredients and ways to do that. And is there, one, I think music is an awesome shortcut. So a simple, fun thing is to either make your own playlist or solicit song recommendations from everyone that's attending. And if everybody contributes one song and you end up with this unique playlist for the event, that would be kind of cool to then be listening to that in the car or whatever. But you could also introduce a game, and it could be, a kind of a meaningful game, or it could be completely silly or irreverent. It could be 3 truths and a lie. It could be, anything like that.
Yeah.
Icebreaker game too, especially for people that maybe don't know each other. That would be good.
Yeah.
I have a game where you just ask kind of questions and kind of like just it's called a topic box or something. And I use that with people that don't know each other very well. It's really fun. Like who would you want to meet, to interview or something, just to get to know people. I love that idea.
It's so good, Ruby, that you said that. Because again, don't you think that kind of gets back to what I was saying of whether you're talking about alcohol or not, these are kind of fun ideas that we didn't ever think of this. People just show up to the event, and we're thinking that alcohol could be a tool to just help break the ice. But your idea of an icebreaker is a much better tool than alcohol. Alcohol doesn't work very well for that. So I love the idea of some kind of game, or also under the heading of playful, in Oregon wine country, I've loved going to, and I've brought people just, to go with me sometimes, to a little farm where you can pet and pick up and hang out with baby goats. And it is just playful. You could not possibly leave there, feeling anything other than playful and laughing, and great photo ops. So there certainly could be something like that in wine
milking
country.
a cow. It's harder than you think. The talk about that is funny because it's a lot harder than you think to milk a cow.
Oh my God. Okay, Susan, that is weird because you and I've never connected on that, but I tried it and I was terrible. It is so much harder.
It's just weird. So talk about silly and laughing and
Totally. If your thought was, okay, I want to be, if a tactic is, I want to show up in a place that's curious, really, that's a great way to engage in the event and be present, to say, I'm going to be curious. And that could mean asking questions and Ruby, just like you said, asking those types of icebreaker questions, funny questions, weird questions. And it could be that you're asking them of the party that you came with. It also could be meeting people in tasting rooms. I do think sometimes that's what we enjoy about a tasting room experience, is that you get to interact with some of the other people that are there, or to ask the winemakers or the staff, questions about what did you do before you got into the wine business, or, that just, there are things to think about and discover about the actual winery, the history of the town, wherever this is. In these agricultural towns, there's kind of some, interesting geology and history. And then if you're thinking about, I want to feel joyful, well, there are definitely ways that we can approach that. And just the mere idea of getting out of our routine and doing something novel, making a discovery, those are great shortcuts to feeling delight and joy. Just kind of hearing that might even give you the opportunity to feel more excited about this, bachelorette party and what the opportunity is. We tend to, when we take, field trips out to the country and just do something different, there's a lift to our spirits being in nature. The beautiful thing is, because you're not drinking, you're available for all of it. And, keeping in mind that when our senses aren't being numbed, we really are available for everything. There's the opportunity for things to be brighter and in more color. You might catch details that people who are drinking are missing. And I love hearing stories like that. I had a friend, a client, who talked about a wedding. And when she said that they did the next day debrief, that's so fun, like, oh, and wasn't that great? And she said, wasn't that so cool that the bride and groom left on a speedboat? Everyone else in her group said, what? The bride and groom left on a speedboat. So, they were all drinking. They were at the bar.
I didn't notice.
They were at the bar.
Wow.
And so that's really interesting. A recent client noticed the same thing. Wow, everyone was at the bar, like moths to a flame. So it's just a mindset shift. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with that. We're not saying that you're judging or that there's anything wrong. It's just merely the noticing, just that there's the opportunity to say, maybe there's things happening, away from the flame that that I might notice. And
I love that. Or sunrises, right? If people are drinking, and sunsets,
totally.
Both. So many sunrises, but I think if it's it's a whole weekend, sometimes bachelorette parties are like a whole weekend, then you can be the one, waking up and doing a sun salutation to the sunrise with your coffee or your tea.
Totally.
Yeah.
And we didn't talk yet about just also leaning in to the idea of dressing up or anything that makes you feel good. That is so easy for my brain to dismiss. Oh, that's surface, not important, frivolous. And we dismiss that kind of thing, to our own disadvantage, because really we all know at some gut level that when we feel good in what we're wearing, we feel good. It is a lift to be wearing something. And having owned and operated a winery and tasting room for 25 years, I certainly got to see where there were groups that came in and they had just dressed up for their day and they felt fabulous. And definitely, a few times I saw a group that had dressed up in theme, like Mad Men. I saw a group do that once. No one has to go to that extreme. There is no pressure here whatsoever. It's whatever is fun for you, but it can be I absolutely notice a difference when I feel good in what I'm wearing. And to that end, it could be that I'm not a big one on nails, but that that is such a, in the scheme of things, small little detail that can make that can just make you feel festive. And I love how it seems like a simple thing, but isn't that amazing how it transforms us? And that's why across history humans have gotten into disguise. And, I'm from New Orleans, so I'm very, well aware of that whole spirit of disguising oneself and taking on a different identity. But it doesn't take much. It doesn't have to be an elaborate costume.
Well, I wanted to just sort of recap, because what I hear you saying, if I was the person asking the question, then I would think, okay, I want to research and see, do they have non-alcoholic options or something else? So to your Instagram post, somebody else answered, which I thought was awesome. And she said that find out if the winery produces other things. That she said 15 years ago, she found out she was pregnant a few weeks before her wedding, and they were invited to a wedding party, winery tour, and her amazing husband found out that one of them also produced olive oil and set up a tasting just for her, and the rest of the party was jealous and wanted to join in too. So ask, look around, see what else they offer, because you mentioned that. Ask for a non-alcoholic, water, even if that's all they have, or sparkling water in a wine glass, or ask if you can bring your own and ask them for a wine glass so you are participating. And also, we talk about mindset all the time. So it's the ingredients you're putting in. So it's like, how do I want to show up? How do I want to feel? What can I notice? How can I engage all of my senses, the chocolate bars? What else is there to taste, see, smell, lavender fields, all that. So it's putting that in instead of the dread of, well, how am I going to do this? This is going to be terrible. Like you go in with that attitude and that mindset, and that it is going to be terrible.
And I hear from my clients all the time that it's actually so much more fun once you can relax into it and not feel that fear of missing out. But it's actually more joy, more laughter. You're more present. You're connecting even more. So this whole that alcohol connects us is really just, I think, a fallacy. And, I wanted to share, I started to share before the call that I don't go to a lot of bachelorette parties, but I went to my sister's years and years ago, but it was all about alcohol. And we were all sick, especially her. She was just sick, hungover, not feeling well, missed most of the second day of her entire bachelorette party. It was really, that was not fun, right? And that happens a lot with bachelorette parties because you overdrink. And maybe drinking, lots of different beverages that you haven't drank before. So I'm loving this topic.
I am too.
Yeah, so much more fun.
It's something that I think just decades back we didn't think about at all. There was no plan. I've had two recently, two clients that were, quite a bit younger, 25 years old, 25 or 26. And two of them coincidentally were getting married themselves and planning for that. And I admire so much that they're putting this thought into, I really want to be very present for my wedding. This is such a special day. And yes, I wish I had been that thoughtful and put that much, intentionality into it. I definitely, we've shared a lot of ideas. So I would also just encourage anyone who is, excited to try this, that it does not mean that you should be doing all of this and there's a huge pressure that you have to make this into some big gamified and I have to write a poem and I have to, no. These were really just ideas. And if you did one of these things and asked sort of one of these questions, that's plenty. You're already so far ahead of the game just by, submitting this question and just even challenging with coming at it with curiosity of, maybe there is a way that I can make this something special and be completely engaged and a full participant without alcohol. So I just say bravo for, asking the question. And
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you so much, Martha. This was amazing. Yeah.
And thank you for pointing that out, because I think I did make that mistake that first time on the Napa water tour, I call it, for me anyway, is that I was so determined to make this fun that I by the time I was done, I was exhausted from making it fun. You know what I mean? And it's okay at some point, like you said, when everyone starts to come down and, day drinking, they're all taking a nap. Then it's well, what am I going to do now? And making it special for yourself. Now I'm going to go for the hike, or I'm going to get the spa treatment, or, if it's a weekend thing, because everybody else is sleeping it off, or, just not trying to do all the things, because what I've found with clients too, is you do that and then you're exhausted. And then the next day you may have gone on the wine tasting tour and not drank, but the next day, sometimes then they drink because they're exhausted and they were working too hard at the event. And it's this little backlash thing. So just being aware of that too, I think is important.
Yes. And you really
take care of yourself.
You really do deserve a reward. There is nothing wrong with saying that. And we can sometimes make that mistake of saying, the drinking thing, I shouldn't reward myself for not drinking. No, you should. You absolutely should. And you deserve it. Going and doing something that most of us have never done without alcohol, it deserves a big reward. So have something in mind waiting for you at home or back in your hotel room or whatever it is. It's really well deserved. And it's a great way of showing your brain that being alcohol free comes with reward.
Right. Because it does.
It does.
It does.
That's right.
But it's nice to have the massage or the special, meal or
spa treatment.
Yeah. I love getting your nails done or, spending your money on a special outfit, all those things that you talked about. So many good ideas in this episode. I'm sure that is going to help so many people. Yeah. So thank you so much, Martha. And I wanted to mention that, we didn't do the whole Martha's story. So if you didn't hear her story in the episode that we had in December, you can go back and listen to episode 48, because there's tons of great holiday tips in that one. And also Martha's sobriety story, which is awesome, especially being a winery owner and tasting room owner. That is amazing. Living in Paris. Which is also amazing. And she's found all the alcohol-free places, whether you can get amazing drinks in Paris, and who knew, right? So I would say follow Martha on Instagram to get all of her tips. What's your Instagram?
The Make Alcohol Small Coach.
Yes.
And it's fun. The great news is there is so much happening in this movement here as well, but it bodes well for all of us because the quality is improving, the availability is just taking off. So I love researching all of that and sharing it. So
awesome. And Martha, can I ask you one final question? What are you doing in Paris to feel lit, alcohol free?
Oh, I love that. Absolutely, as much as I can. And what I love thinking about is, what can I drink in with my other senses? So I love taking in art. I just went to a Dolce & Gabbana exhibit. It was the last day of that exhibit in Paris. So the Dolce & Gabbana Italian designers, and there was a very immersive experience. And then as soon as we sign off, I am heading out in the sunshine. It's finally very sunny here, to enjoy just a stroll along the river and meeting another couple for what is just referred here as an apéro. It just means, happy hour. And it is, to anyone out there, wondering, it doesn't happen immediately, but over time, the idea of happy hour now doesn't raise anything but excitement of it. It's absolutely no thought of, around it, except, oh, I can't wait to get out on that Parisian terrace and have a nice glass of something. There are NA options or always a sparkling water and lime in a beautiful setting and clinking glasses and toasting to clarity and connection. And that's how I think of the toast. So thank you for asking.
that.
Thanks for having me. I loved this conversation.
It's amazing. Me too. So
Yes. Thank you so much. And we will see you next time. Let us know in our Facebook community if you try some of the things that we talked about on this episode. We'd love to hear from you. Bye.
fun. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks so much for listening to Feel It Alcohol Free Podcast. Do you have a question you'd like us to answer on the show?
All you need to do is head over to Apple Podcasts and do 2 simple things. Leave a rating and review telling us what you think of the show. And in that review, ask us any questions you have about breaking free from wine or living an alcohol-free lifestyle.
That's it. Then tune in to hear your question answered live.
And remember, do something today that will help you feel lit.